Good evening, everyone. 10:30 on a Saturday night as we close out the regular season for the Auburn Tigers, getting the win in Stark Vegas. The final score 24-10. But Matt Scalisi, not too many style points for that win. A win is a win. They're now 6-4 on the season, but definitely an interesting show of performance out there. And just want to get your overall thoughts on how you saw the Auburn Tigers perform. Not very good early on, obviously came on strong there at the end to put some points on the board.
Yeah, it was a frustrating game to watch, Lauren. Let's put it that way. I think that there were I've got a lot of friends who are Auburn fans, and I think quite a few of them were in my text messages tonight saying all manner of things about this game, and a lot of it wasn't positive during the game. But look, you'd rather win this game than not win it, and Auburn gets to go out on a win. They get a winning record for the season. So it's certainly better than the alternative, but I think there are a lot of things. It's, in some ways, a good embodiment of the season here. Just sort of frustrating to watch, not super exciting, but, the good parts show a lot of promise and a lot of potential for everybody involved. So we'll see if it means anything for the long-term future for Auburn, but definitely, when you've ultimately got guys that can do the kind of things that Bo Nix can do at his best, that can do things like Seth Williams can do at his best, you're going to beat a team like Mississippi State that isn't really particularly good at anything. So Mississippi State, I thought, did a pretty good job of making the game difficult for Auburn, but in the end, the team that won this game was the one that had players who were capable of making big plays. It would have been fun to see them make more big plays, but they did it. They made enough of them to win this game. Did we lose? I think we lost Lauren for a second there, so we'll switch over to me. There we go. We got her back. She's back.
Hey, I'm back.
You froze up on us,
here
Lauren.
hanging out in a hotel here in St. Louis, Missouri. I had the Missouri Georgia game earlier. I got hat head. That's what I said. I have my toboggan hair. It was a little cold out here, y'all.
Well, you froze up. You froze up on us, and it felt like portions of this Auburn Mississippi State game. It's just I'm staring at the screen and nothing's happening.
Hey, that's a good way to look at it. Okay, so here's the deal. Talking about some of the bright spots. Obviously, the defensive performance was very strong. And then you have a career night from Tank Bigsby, a healthy Tank Bigsby, 192 yards on 26 carries. Pretty strong there. Here's the thing. You brought up Seth Williams, a guy that Bo Nix has been able to connect with and provide some explosiveness throughout the season. But what's kind of crazy is it has been since October 24th. Tom Green pointed this out on Twitter. Since October 24th against Ole Miss that Seth Williams had his touchdown. So it's kind of crazy to think when you kind of string everything together, the offensive performance and I guess the offensive explosiveness and what they've been able to create. It was the Tank Bigsby show once again, and really it didn't come on strong until really in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and look, he's that kind of back too. I think it's not that surprising to see him get better and dominate as the game goes on. At the same time, I think you can sometimes with a back like Tank, you can get that motor going earlier by giving them more touches. And I think that's one of the things that's frustrating about tonight's game and other games this year for Auburn is it seems like Gus goes away from the hot hand for long stretches of time. And look, he's the football coach. I'm not. He knows what he's doing. But it's tough to watch Tank run so hard and effectively for stretches of this game, and then you'll look up and feel like, man, it feels like it's been a whole quarter since he got a touch. And I think ultimately, if you're trying to take one thing away from this season for Auburn, something positive to look forward to next season, it's got to be Tank. I mean, an incredibly exciting player that shows a ton of potential. I mean, just what he was able to do this year alone was a great accomplishment. I think if they had more pieces there complementing what he was able to do on the ground, this is a team with a better record. I think if this is a guy that you consciously build your offense around going forward, you can probably go some places with this team. And I think that will be a big part of what they try to look at in the offseason is how do we more effectively highlight what Tank Bigsby gave us this year? How do we build around that?
Yeah, and it's worth noting, again, 192 yards for Tank Bigsby. Mississippi State has a pretty good run defense, number 4 in the SEC, and certainly nothing to dismiss in terms of their abilities to stop the run. So for Auburn to have success in that, and we, coming into this football game, we said it. Auburn plays its best football when they can run the football effectively, get production on the ground, and obviously we saw that late in that football game. Defensively, let's go to the defensive side of football. Season high 6 sacks for Auburn's defense. That's the Tigers' most in single game since 2018 against Ole Miss. I think they executed really well on defense. It obviously showed up on the scoreboard, allowing just 10 points to a more improved Mississippi State team. I covered Mississippi State against Georgia a couple weeks ago, and they put up a fight. They put up a dog fight against, the Georgia Bulldogs, and they were decimated at the time. They had 49 scholarship players. Actually, I think it dropped to 43 when all was said and done. But with that being said, I had more expectations for this Mississippi State football team. So, when all is said and done, I get it. I see that. I see all the comments coming down. Don't make excuses for Auburn.
Hey, look, I'm not excusing any of it. It is what it is. This is a team.
Patrick says, "Oh no, the Fired Gus guy."
Yeah, look, I totally understand.
Oh goodness,
I totally understand why people would be frustrated with this team. But I think you have to try and understand that there are actually bad teams in college football in the SEC. There are teams that never do anything good. I know I've watched a couple of Vanderbilt games this season. It's actually possible for your team to never do anything worth celebrating or getting excited about. That's not Auburn. This team actually has a lot of potential. They don't do as much of it as you would like them to do. They don't do as much of it as they're capable of. And I think in some ways that's more frustrating than just being a bad team. I think when you see that your team is capable and has it within them to make great plays, when you see Bo throw a perfect pass on a rope to Seth Williams as he runs into the corner of the end zone,
no doubt.
It's hard to not tell yourself, we could have done that. We could have been doing that all along, right? That's what's frustrating about a team like that. But you'd rather be that team than the team that never does anything, than the team that's just hopeless and getting their brains kicked out every single week. I think it's hard to have nuance in sports because ultimately you have a loss at the end of the night, and it's hard to take good things away from it. But this Auburn team could go a couple of different directions next year. There's not hopelessness. There's not no reason for optimism about this team, but it's going to take being inventive and being creative. And part of that's going to be on Gus and his coordinators. This can't be acceptable. I totally understand that from fans who say, we don't just want this every year, but these guys are smart. I believe that Gus Malzahn is a very smart coach when he commits himself to it, because I've seen him beat Alabama in ways that I've never seen any coach beat anybody. So he can do it. The question is, how does he go about that process in this offseason? And we'll see. I think there's going to be some heat on him in this offseason. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure around this program, and Gus is going to be judged for what he does next season. And I think that's totally fair.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of ups and downs. That's kind of what we've experienced with this Auburn team this year. But let's keep in mind, you pointed it out. I mean, there are some not very good football teams in the SEC. We've seen a lot of disparity there. And I mean, we're in a pandemic year. I know everyone's going to jump at me and say, don't make excuses, but you're hearing this from every single coach. Did we not just watch LSU go beat Florida just now? Like, did you watch that? Did you witness that? Like I did. Okay. So we're in a wild time. Auburn just, essentially kicked the snot out of LSU. And then look what they did to Florida. Florida's about to go play for an SEC championship with a Heisman Trophy contender in Kyle Trask. So, it's a different deal this year. And I know a lot of people are going to want to put an asterisk beside this season, but there's a lot of challenges that have come with it. And, I think there's the assumption that teams are kind of just fed up. They want to give up. They want to kind of peace out. But you do have to kind of look across the board. When you look at Auburn, and this kind of gives me hope and optimism for next year, there's a lot of teams in the SEC, more specifically, we'll say, that have had a ton of opt-outs. Guys that have transferred have just said, peace out, I'm done, I'm out. We haven't seen that from Auburn. Obviously, early on, and it's different too. An opt-out at the end of the season is pretty much like, I'm done.
I'm done quitting with this. I'm out.
I'm quitting, right? That's a totally different deal than obviously, early.
And that's not
season.
what KJ Britt did, to be clear. I mean, this was a legitimate injury, and you hate to see that. But he was voted a team captain for a reason. I don't think he decided he didn't want to be a part of this team anymore. I think you're right, Lauren, that it's worth drawing a distinction about the difference between what happened at Auburn this year, and LSU's a great comparison, right? Because that's a program that has similarly high expectations to Auburn and has the talent that should be capable of doing. I mean, we just talked about how frustrating it is to watch your team do things that show that they're capable of being great, and then seeing that they didn't do that the rest of the time this season. LSU was good enough to beat a playoff contender tonight. And in theory, that means they were good enough to do that all year, and they just didn't do it. I think all things considered, Auburn held itself together better than a lot of other teams in the conference. Now, there's stuff going on off the field that is worth being concerned about, I think, and we'll have to see how that stuff gets resolved. Who comes back? Who decides to leave early? Do guys end up transferring out? They held together during the season, though. The team did not fall apart during the season. It's still yet to be resolved to see how the program handles the offseason, which is going to be competitive and difficult. And Auburn is kind of behind the eight ball right now when it comes to recruiting. They need a really strong couple of weeks here to catch up to the rest of the better teams in the league. But, I still think there is a really solid core of leadership in this program, both in terms of the players and the coaching staff. I mean, I think Kevin Steele has not done anything to lose the confidence of his players or the coaches around him. I think when you hear Cole Kublik on the broadcast tonight talking about what Tank Bigsby was doing on the sidelines, I mean, that's a true freshman who was kind of supposedly firing up everybody else on the sidelines later in this game. That's a really positive thing to hear. There are lots of forces that are holding this program together, and the kinds of things that you need for a team to be successful going forward. And a lot of experienced players will be coming back next year, which are, again, you'd like to see it every year, but next year, I think the expectations will be higher for this team, and they should be, and we'll see if they live up to them.
You kind of said it like our friend here, Blake Robinson, writing in 6-4 against all SEC competition. Not really terrible with the youth and talent on this team. I'm not a Gus guy, but fair is fair. Next year should be our year of judgment, not this one with pandemic and youth of this level.
I think so. I think that's totally fair. That. Yes.
Yep. I like that, Blake. Hey, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. Even Calvin Battle, man, hitting us with the rinse and repeat on the Gus, please fire. Calvin, shout out, man. I know you wanted a shout out. We love you.
You got to give him this. He doesn't quit.
He does not quit.
You got to appreciate resilience.
Resilience. I love it. All right, Matt Scalisi, we appreciate you. Final score in Starkville, Auburn winning 24-10, now 6-4 on the season, awaiting their fate in the postseason. We'll have all those updates coming your way next week. And for now, rest well, my friend.